Translational research in reproductive medicine, collaborating with clinicians and researchers to implement innovations. Translational research in reproductive medicine is the process of moving findings from basic science and preclinical studies into clinical settings to improve patient outcomes and treatment strategies. Successful translational research in this field involves collaboration among clinicians, researchers, scientists, and patients to ensure that laboratory discoveries are effectively implemented into real-world reproductive care practices. This collaboration helps integrate cutting-edge innovations in embryology, genetics, sperm analysis, and ART technologies into clinical protocols. The primary aim of translational research in reproductive medicine is to develop new treatments for infertility, optimize ART outcomes, and improve genetic screening methods to prevent inherited diseases. It is a complex process that requires a team-based approach to ensure that laboratory findings have a direct impact on clinical practice. First, key concepts in translational research. What is translational research? Translational research refers to the process of taking scientific discoveries from the lab and applying them in clinical settings. It bridges the gap between basic scientific understanding and practical healthcare solutions, with the goal of improving patient care and advancing medical treatments. In reproductive medicine, translational research focuses on improving fertility treatments like IVF, ICSI, genetic screening, and embryo selection. Importance of collaboration in translational research. Collaboration is essential because it integrates knowledge from multiple areas to develop holistic, innovative, and effective solutions in reproductive healthcare. It involves working together with different experts to ensure laboratory findings are tested, validated, and ultimately used in clinical practice. 2. The role of clinicians and researchers in translational research. Clinicians' role in translational research. Patient-centered care. Clinicians provide real-world insights and patient data which inform laboratory research on effective treatment protocols. Their experience in diagnosing infertility and managing ART procedures help shape research questions and areas of focus. Clinical application of new findings. Clinicians help test and apply new technologies, techniques, and drugs discovered in the lab directly to patient care. For example, once a new embryo culture medium shows success in the lab, clinicians work with researchers to incorporate it into IVF protocols. Clinical trials. Clinicians play a pivotal role in recruiting patients for clinical trials, collecting patient samples, and providing ongoing feedback on the effectiveness and safety of new therapies. Researchers' role in translational research. Basic science discoveries. Researchers conduct laboratory-based studies that explore genetic markers, embryo development, and the effects of different culture media on embryo viability. They use animal models, cell cultures, and genetic testing to explore potential treatments and solutions for fertility issues. Preclinical research. Researchers perform preclinical studies to assess the safety and efficacy of new treatments, such as hormonal therapies or genetic screening techniques, before moving to human clinical trials. Innovative technologies. Research teams work on developing new tools and technologies like AI-driven embryo selection, stem cell therapies, and genetic editing methods that could revolutionize reproductive medicine. 3. Effective collaboration between clinicians and researchers. Shared goals and objectives. Both clinicians and researchers aim to improve patient outcomes, but researchers focus on discovery and validation, while clinicians focus on implementation and treatment outcomes. This shared goal ensures that clinical needs and practical constraints are considered during the research process. B. Multidisciplinary teams. Successful translational research requires collaboration between embryologists, fertility specialists, geneticists, molecular biologists, and clinicians. Each team member brings specialized knowledge that ensures new innovations are comprehensively tested and clinically relevant. C. Feedback loops between research and clinical practice. Data sharing. Researchers and clinicians regularly share data to adjust research protocols or clinical practices. For instance, embryo culture conditions may be adjusted based on feedback from clinical outcomes in IVF. Adjusting research based on clinical findings. If a new treatment or technique does not yield the expected clinical results, researchers can refine their approach, hypotheses, or experimental models. Clinician feedback on treatment failures, patient preferences, and challenges with IVF protocols guides future research questions. Fourth case study. Example: the development of pre-implantation genetic testing, PGT. Discovery phase research. PGT began as a laboratory-based discovery aimed at detecting genetic disorders in embryos before implantation. Researchers identified genetic markers that could be used to screen embryos for diseases like cystic fibrosis, Down syndrome, and sickle cell anemia. Translational phase collaboration. Clinicians tested PGT in clinical trials with patients undergoing IVF to evaluate its safety, accuracy, and clinical relevance. As PGT gained success, researchers optimized the technique for broader clinical use, including the development of new genetic screening platforms and biomarkers. C. Clinical implementation. PGT is now a routine part of IVF for patients at risk of genetic disorders, helping to improve implantation rates and reduce the risk of passing on genetic diseases. Ongoing research continues to improve the accuracy and efficiency of PGT, as well as extend its applications to more genetic disorders. 5. Overcoming barriers to translational research. Ethical challenges. Embryo research. Working with human embryos raises significant ethical concerns about the genetic modification of embryos and the potential for designer babies. Ethical guidelines must be followed, and regulatory bodies ensure that research involving human embryos meets strict standards. Patient consent. Translational research involving human subjects requires informed consent from patients, which can sometimes be a barrier if patients are reluctant to participate in new treatments. B. Regulatory hurdles. Many innovations must undergo rigorous regulatory approval before they can be implemented in clinical practice. This can slow down the pace at which research findings are applied in reproductive medicine. C. Funding and resource allocation. Translational research often requires substantial funding for clinical trials, and securing financial support from government agencies or private investors can be challenging. Sixth, future directions of translational research in reproductive medicine. A. Personalized reproductive medicine. The future of reproductive medicine will increasingly involve personalized treatments based on genetic profiles, biomarkers, and patient histories. Researchers and clinicians will work together to develop more targeted therapies that optimize fertility treatment based on the individual needs of patients. Bachelor of Artificial Intelligence and Robotics in Art. Innovations in artificial intelligence, AI, and robotics will revolutionize embryo selection, sperm sorting, and embryo transfer. Clinicians and researchers will continue to collaborate on refining AI models and ensuring they are clinically relevant and safe for patients. C. Gene editing and stem cell therapy. Gene editing techniques like CRISPR may offer the potential to correct genetic mutations in embryos before implantation. Stem cell therapies may help regenerate ovarian tissues or testicular tissue in patients who suffer from infertility due to age or medical conditions. 7. Conclusion. Translational research is the key to improving fertility treatments, optimizing IVF outcomes, and advancing personalized medicine in reproductive healthcare. Successful collaboration between clinicians and researchers is essential to ensure that innovations from the laboratory reach patients effectively, ethically, and safely.